Hi, I'm Gene Sage,
And I'm Jack Curvin,
and this is Show Me Your Deck,
a podcast where we explore the intersections of oracles and chakras,
using our original decks to create new insights. Well, here we are, episode number 4,
Nice.
making our way through. I'm holding the first official Sage Oracle deck printed with all of the pretties, like the actual fundamental first unit ever produced by a printing press. So I'm excited about that. Yeah. Like I had a test deck that I was using for the first 3 episodes because I was waiting for the final product to arrive, and it's got a pretty box and it's got pretty cards. It reminds me of like really high quality playing cards, which is kind of tarot-y, but kind of not. So, but to keep the price down, otherwise it'd be like $100 a deck or something if we used the full card stock, which is just crazy. I don't know how publishers do it.
I don't know, but doing it in small batches, it's definitely
expensive.
Bespoke.
Yeah, it's
Definitely bespoke.
So if you can go to showyourdeck.com right now and pick up any of the decks that we talk about on the show. So a little shout out to our merchandise. We also have a book, 1 book each. So you can get our books, you can get our deck. In the case of Jack, decks.
Yep, decks. Yep.
Multiple. And actually, I think we talked ourselves out of a 5th one at some point. I remember we kind of had we had a moment where like, should there be a 5th one?
Yeah, there is another one. I don't remember now what it was, but the 4 I've got are already they're good. They're good.
Yeah, we're good.
With
We're good. 4 tetrad.
Yes, tetrad.
Well,
We don't need a quintad.
We don't have no pentahedral.
No pentatad or anything like that. We're good.
4 elements. No, you have 7 elements. So
I have 7.
can you imagine if we made 7 decks?
No, it was so much work during the 4 I've got.
It's true. It's true.
So much work. They're beautiful. They're stunning. I highly recommend them. Obviously, I'm biased, but they are amazing. And 4 was enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get started. Let's roll for random and let's get our mood card.
Okay, hold on. So let me see which deck we're going to pull from. I've got a little dice here, and
I'm also supposed to say less this episode. I got a note from one of our test listeners, and I say too much, so I have to watch my this episode.
Okay. Watch your ums.
Did
I say
Maybe, I don't know. You're a little bit more poised than I am.
Strike the and let's just roll the dice, and we get deck number 4 of 4. And that is going to be from the Perceptions deck that focuses on the haiku from the book.
Ooh,
and we're
haiku.
going to pull, let's see. Remember, if this is a 50-sided dice, if 50 comes up, I'll let you pick a number randomly. So let's see what we get. 27.
27. In my head, I was hearing 37, so it's only off by 10. That works in roulette, right? You can be off by 10 and still win.
Can you? In roulette? I don't know. That one's always...
That doesn't sound like a thing.
Crazy. No, it's always... The house will always win. Give it time. So, number 27. This is Anahata. Green, wood, I do. It's at the heart chakra. Touching Svadhisthana, which is orange or metal, down in your viscera. I feel. So how I love is affected by I feel. The metaphor here. Sorry, strike the
It's hard. This is an extemporaneous podcast, all right? We're thinking as we go.
The metaphor attached to number 27 of 49 is an arboglyph. That's when you take an object of some kind and scratch scratch signs or words into tree bark, and then it leaves a scar that remains for years and years. But that's an
so like the tree grows around the etching, so it like when you carve your name on a tree.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's an arboglyph.
I had no idea that had an official word. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Just I had no idea there was an official word for that.
Yeah, arbo for tree, glyph for writing, arboglyph. So wood and metal. Ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay, it's a haiku. It's going to hit hard. It's going to slap, bro. Okay, here we go.
Jesus.
Spike impaled heartwood. Grapple, subsume trauma's nails. Wounds, scars, bark, time, poise.
Ooh. Oh, that's dense.
It's dense.
That's dense.
It's dense.
I heard
Should I do it one more time?
Heartwood. Well, Heartwood hit me. Heartwood hit me.
yeah.
Grapple. That was another word that hit me. Grapple. I can't think of there was a third word. Oh, nails.
Nails.
Nails. Yeah.
Yes. Let's do it one more time. Spike impaled heartwood. Grapple subsume trauma's nails. Wounds, scars, bark, time, poise.
That's interesting. So this is metal, the molten metal of your emotions and sensations touching your heart.
Yes.
I love. There's kind of a dangerous process here.
Oh, yeah.
Wood and molten metal don't mix that well. I mean, they do once you've tempered the metal, but just, right away, like not so much.
Yeah, the elemental itself is just metal. It can be molten in some of the intersections. This one happens to be in the form of nails.
Nails. So this is a little bit more solid.
Yes.
This
There's
just
scars and heartwood and trauma.
yes. Why is this intersection so traumatic?
So this entire sequence with Anahata, wood, I love, heart chakra, has to grow out of plant-based imagery. And so I didn't want an axe to chop the tree down. I wanted something that gave room for recovery. I knew it was going to be traumatizing because of the way emotions and sensations can interact with the way we connect with people, but I didn't want it to have to end that way. When you chop a tree down, it generally kills it, generally destroys it. But when you carve something into it, even if it's a nail, the tree will heal and grow around it. So the idea here is that the emotional marks that are left on your heart or marked on the habits you have in terms of connecting with other people, they might always be visible. They don't always have to be fatal. They don't have to end your ability to connect with other people.
Well, in the terms of wood growing, like the wood will grow around the nail, it'll consume it, and it'll always be a part of it, but it doesn't disrupt. So it'll disrupt the rings of the tree. The growth pattern is forever changed. But
there's still growth.
But there's still growth. And while it defines the pattern, it doesn't stop it.
Correct.
Interesting. Poise. The second time you read it, poise stood out to me. I just have this sort of majestic standing tree that even though you've heard it, this nail is so insignificant in comparison to the gargantuan object into which it has been impaled.
Yeah. Well, the last line is wounds, scars, bark, time, poise. It's a process.
Interesting.
Definitely a process.
All right, so we're going to be healing some traumas, or at least getting into some traumas, some things that are hanging out there, some nails that have
the ways in which they do not stop us from making connections with other people.
And it's interesting.
We can change it, but not stop it.
You talked about the etching into the heartwood, like the actual, carving process. So that message becomes embedded. So there's a lot, there's so many interesting, we're gonna have to see where this goes, because there's so many interesting places that this could head, but we have things happening, expressing forever. These are deep, these are traumas, these are deep wounds, but they don't have to stall the process. In some ways, the tree is going to just continue growing until it can't grow any larger or any taller. And it's going to keep adding rings every year, a new ring every year. And there's a march of progress towards it. So there's almost, even though it's forever altered, it's one small piece of it. It's one tiny bit of it. It hurts, I'm sure, but pain focuses you on minute sensations for important reasons, but it's not your whole body.
If it happens when the tree is small enough for its spike impaled heartwood. So if it happens when the tree, is small enough, young enough, inexperienced enough, it's going to hit all the way through to your core, all the way through to that deep heartwood. And yet, give it time, you will regain your poise. It's a process. It takes time. You have to be patient with the process. It sucks. Too bad. What's the alternative?
I'm curious. It's just popped in my head. This is a total off the wall. Did bonsai have any?
I'm sorry, what?
Did bonsai have any factor in your composition process of this?
I had already done pruning when metal interacted with wood. So there's a topiary haiku. So that would be the inversion of this card.
Interesting. Yeah, there was something where trauma shapes the forward momentum of the tree, but then there's the opposite, which would be containing it, which would be, keeping it from its growth, from its march of progress.
Yeah. And with that would be the inversion of this particular intersection. I chose the word topiary. I don't know why. I don't remember why I went with topiary instead of bonsai specifically. I think that I wanted to be careful about appropriating too much from Japanese culture because the form is already Japanese. So I think that I specifically veered towards topiary as opposed to bonsai for that reason. But the concept there of metal shaping wood is the inversion of metal impaling wood.
Both are very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to pull the inversion, or is that just an interesting observation?
No, I think it's just an interesting observation that we with your system, the way that they meet differs. So when you get into the cycle of metal, that intersection is going to happen again in the cycle of the heart, but it's going to mean something different when it does. That's one of the neat little intricacies of your system that I like. But it made me think of it when we were talking about it. So it makes sense that it's the inversion.
Yeah. And every intersection does have an inversion because it's the same 7 elementals running through each cycle. So every single one of them does have an inversion. What's interesting is when both come up in the same reading.
What happens on your cards, which I really like visually, is that the top and the bottom of the card tells you. So the inverted card of this is literally the colors are inverted. Mm-hmm. So is Anahata on top in this one?
Yes, it's the main cycle. And then the intersecting chakra is the one at the bottom.
And then in the inversion, it would be the reverse. So you'd have...
Yes, because the metal cycle, all of them would be orange on the top, and this particular intersection would have green on the bottom.
So that's a nice... It makes... if the two inversions do come up in the same reading, it'll make a very nice color palette as well. Which,
yes, and it has happened. It's really beautiful.
Hands off to us.
Yes,
It was like we said, it was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, but we have good ideas. I'm sorry, I have to brag for a second. We do good work.
We do good work.
We do good work.
We do very good work. And we hope that you partake of our work. But if you just enjoy our words, that's fine too. We're just glad to have people listening.
Yes.
All right. Well, we've got to come up with our main reading. Trauma.
And healing from it.
I think we're going to pull one card from my deck and then we'll decide what to do after that. Let me just...
All right.
Let me just find the Buzzy Buzz. It's a new deck, so sometimes they're more sassy or more inclined. All right. We have... Oh, imagine that. I have a green card. In this case, this is the root chakra for my system. So this is the 6 of Seeds, which corresponds with the 6 of Pentacles in the tarot deck. Gather so that you may share.
I love that.
So
especially in the context of this,
it's my seeds, right? Which ties very closely to your tree.
My wood, yeah,
your wood.
Next to the tree in this particular image, yeah.
But mine's a root chakra, whereas yours is heart chakra. So that's interesting how our systems kind of bandy that about.
Yeah.
So gather so that you may share.
Gather so that you may share. I love that.
The sixes,
okay, say more.
The 6s have this sense of sort of giving back, of one cycle giving to the next cycle. The 6 of what I call waves, or what other suits call cups, is about childhood trauma. So it's interesting that there's a 6 out there that talks about the the gifts of childhood and the traumas of childhood and the past visiting upon the present. So 6 is an interesting numerological association for kind of what we're going through. But I think that it's in the root chakra because when you deal with trauma, it brings you right back to the root. And if we go to your tree, the strength of the tree to continue going on comes from its roots.
The roots, yes. Mm-hmm.
And there's this sensation of sort of falling off of your safety, off of your security, like when the roots have literally been cut off from beneath you. That's kind of what trauma, I think, feels like in cases. So, but what's interesting here is that it's not just about going back to the roots. I think whatever we're talking about when it comes to the trauma for today's reading, it's past us. It's already part of us. And for you, the tree is I love, the wood is I love. So this is literally saying, go to your safety, go to your roots and gather up what you need in order to share.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which is really quite specifically what the other card was saying. You can be wounded and you can continue to share and connect with people. These are intertwined very beautifully.
Well, it has to be that way. I think in order to grow, you have to be able to share. I think of meetings for alcoholics and the idea that part of the process of connection, of healing, comes from sharing. Sharing, in this case, stories, but also sharing burdens, sharing meals, sharing time and energy. All those kind of things go into the healing of these traumatic events or these traumatic pieces of us.
Yes, and sharing responsibility, accountability.
Well, so we've got our focal piece. So we're going to gather that we can gather so that we may share. I'm feeling one of your decks. Let's roll and see.
See which deck we need.
Yeah.
Now we need deck number 2. And that's going to be professions, the literal professions of joy themselves.
All right.
And let's see which intersection we're going to be grabbing. 39.
Ooh. And I said 37 earlier, so we're getting closer. Maybe I'll score a win before the end of the episode.
Nope, there's more orange in this one, more metal, more emotion, more sensation, more instinct. This one, the main cycle is ajna, third eye, blue, water, is IC, and how it's affected by metal, orange, I feel, down in your viscera. IC affected by I feel. That profession, number 39 of 49, is I profess that I see inspiration in the achievements of others.
Okay. It's definitely drawing around here. So we have this overall trauma. I don't think we're going to be talking about it specifically. I think that we have it, we experience it, it's part of us. I think we are at a place where we've accepted it, or we're at a place where we need to be outwardly focused in order to heal it. So,
and to your point earlier about groups, seeing other people succeed can inspire you in your own healing.
What's the inversion of this intersection?
This would be the metal on top, so that would be orange touching blue. Orange touching blue, I don't remember off the top of my head what that is. Let me check right quick. Orange touching blue. Oh, I know what orange touching blue is. That's another toxic one. I know it off the top of my head. I profess that I feel no obligation to drink the poisonous thoughts of others. So that's one that came up in a reading recently with somebody, so that's why I happen to know it off the top of my head. But I just want to confirm that I'm correct on that. So that would be orange on blue. It's number 12 of 49. I profess that I feel no obligation to drink the poisonous thoughts of others. The idea that when feelings get into knowledge, that metal can pollute that water if you're not careful. So you have to be careful of the information you bring in, especially when you're in a heightened state of emotion as you're getting the information. So just be careful that what you're learning isn't poisoning you. Just be aware of it.
So
that would be the inversion of this.
This is interesting, and I'm sorry to keep deflecting to inversion so much, but it feels like we can't really tackle this subject without looking at the inversions. So here with this card, the one that we pulled, we're looking outward and we're allowing those emotions in, and the inversion is to be careful of taking too much
of that emotion you get in,
negative emotion in.
Yeah.
I love that. Again, I think the reason that inversions keep coming to me is that we are purposefully repurposing. We are purposefully repurposing. Mm-hmm. So we're not doing our standard therapy tactic of going and addressing the trauma directly and digging it out and taking it off the shelf and unboxing it and unpacking it. We're
cutting our fingers up with it and slicing our faces up with it.
We're not reliving it. We're not rekindling it. We're not re-narrating it. We're actually very pointedly keeping it where it is. It has echoes. It's never, even in a box on the shelf, even if we've compartmentalized it and done our best to take care of it, it's still there. It's still echoing. It still is that ringing sound that never quite goes away. But in this case, we're filling our ears, our mouths, our emotions, our connection with others, with the connection of others, with the celebration of others. So giving of ourselves, right? Gathering, not for the purpose of self security, but gathering for the security of others.
Yeah.
And
gathering for sharing, sure.
Celebrating that in others. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's beautiful. A very reverse course from what we would normally do in it, obviously with a psychological background. We always want to do that. We always want to dig in, but sometimes it's better to leave it at bay for a moment. So I think what I'm hearing through this is you've been dealing with something. It's been affecting you. Maybe you've been triggered by it. It's resonate. Like I can hear like the bell. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I can hear the bell ringing for you. And rather than trying to unring it, which is just going to make it, it's going to give more energy to it. It's going to vibrate more. The more you touch it, the more you handle it, the more you knock it around, the more it's going to ring. Yes. So in this case, this is kind of like when we talk about chronic illness, we talk about it's like the alarm's going off. You can't deaden the alarm. You can't get rid of it, but you can cover it over. You can use other techniques to focus on other things. And so I hear a little bit of that, of changing your perception, changing your focus from inward to outward is going to be a healing step for you at this point.
It's interesting this is coming up right now because while we're recording this, I'm getting ready for a men's retreat where I will be instructing people in healing. This happens to be a men's group, and the 35 or 40 people who are coming will be coming specifically for embodiment and healing within a group context. So this is all fresh on my mind anyway, whether it's my own experiences or how I'm going to, I want to choose my word here carefully, the experience I curate for them. All of this is going to be happening within an environment of sharing and witnessing other people's trauma, healing, success, sharing, gathering to share. There's a lot of metal and water and green coming at me, metal, water, and wood coming at me in the next few days.
In the woods, no doubt.
In the woods. And we'll be in the woods next to a lake, actually. There's a lake. We'll be in a cabin on a lake in the woods. So water, wood. The metal will be there too, I'm sure. It's fascinating how we can find connections. And if you can find the connection, it means it was there. You're not inventing it.
Well, I like that. I like that a lot. Well, I'm feeling like our third card's going to be one from my deck. So let me. Oh, this one definitely wants to come out. Very talkative. Okay.
Who we got?
We have one chakra below. We have number 4 of the major arcana. I call it the authority. It's time to create the path that others will follow. So this corresponds to the Emperor card and the tarot. And the reason I called it the authority is that beyond getting rid of gender from my deck, I wanted it to be genderless. I wanted this one to take away the sort of masculinity idea. And really what I view the Emperor as doing is sort of like creating the rules of the universe.
The structure,
the paths, the invisible paths. Stars and planets and galaxies all follow these invisible paths made of dark matter, we think, with dark energy hanging out there. But it's dark. It's not illuminated. They're unknown paths. They're hidden pathways, but they control the movement of matter through the universe. And that's really how I kind of viewed this Emperor energy. If we were to remove the gendered norms of it, what would it look like?
Is what remains. Yeah.
The authority, the direction of movement, the rules of the universe. So it's time to create the path that others will follow. This leads.
I'm doing it, honey. I'm doing it.
Yes, you are. This leads very well into what we've been talking about: gathering to share with others, taking the experiences of others, the celebrations of others, and using that as internal fuel, and then striking out going forward. So out of this is what I would say is you are ready to lead. It's okay to not feel like you're there 100%. It's okay to not be 100%. You're not going to be healed before you're going to be called upon to lead others. So this is like going back to AA meetings. This is like a sponsor. Sponsors aren't cured. They're not special, people. They are simply others who are a little bit further along the road than someone else who has something to offer, has something to kind of bring back to that person who's maybe a little bit newer along a journey.
They can reinforce the structure.
Very much. And you're going to strike out and create paths maybe that are hard for you. But remember, just like the first person to go through the jungle, you're leaving a wake that others will find it easier to follow. So I think you might be facing what feels very hard for you, very rough, untrod, undeveloped pathways, but you're bringing the wake of ease for others.
And helping others is a way of helping yourself, gathering so you can share. By creating the path, you're contending with the terrain and understanding it and leaving a space behind you that makes it easier for others to follow your example should they choose. I like the imagery here.
Well, the chakra here is the throat chakra for my deck. So there is a very real sense of spoken word that situates here, even though this chakra, the authority chakra, is, you guessed it, the heart chakra. There's the authority is part of the personas, which is the first 7 of the major arcana. And in my deck, they are figures, personas that are representative of each of their chakras. And so here you have leading with the heart, creating the rules So with heart, with love, creating the pathways of the universe.
Wow. So it started off sounding like a particularly dangerous or hurtful reading is turning into something much more encouraging.
Well, I think we had to start where we had to start because we have to recognize that the pain and the nail and the trauma are real, no matter how much has covered it over, no matter how many years have covered it over now. It's very real. And I think you have to remind yourself of that. It's very real. It's always a part of you. It's okay.
It's allowed to hurt.
It's allowed to hurt. It's okay that you don't want to dig it out either. Right? It's okay not to chop into yourself trying to carve out the trauma before and leaving a mess in the process.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of botched emotional surgery, as it were.
Which I think for some people, therapy can go that way. If you're feeling like that in your therapy, find a different therapist. Not every relationship is meant to last or be. Just like with friends and with partners and with lovers, relationship and therapy is just as important. And having the right match between you and your therapist is a very, very important step. And if they're trying to hatch their way into you and you're feeling like this is something that maybe is better left lay, that's okay too.
It's so interesting that you mentioned this. Way back in 2015, I made an attempt at therapy with a man who was very well intended, but I could never see him again after the second appointment. I could never, ever see him again because I went to him for a specific issue and he zeroed in on something else and decided that he wanted me to focus there on something I didn't even realize was there. And then on top of everything else I was already trying to contend with, this realization comes out of nowhere. And I had to avoid therapy for another 2 or 3 years. When I finally found somebody, it happened this time around to work great. And I've been with her ever since. It's been, 6 or 7 years at this point, I think. So to your point about the relationship with a therapist, you have to be honest with the way in which the therapy is opening you. It should not feel like open heart surgery.
No.
It might at first when you have to admit or look at something, but it shouldn't feel like that forever. That's not the point. You're not supposed to suffer.
A good therapist is not going to let you unpack more than you can take care of in a session. Like they're going to keep you from tearing everything off the shelves and throwing it all down in a big pile and saying, "Look at my trauma." They're just not. They're not going to let that happen.
This particular person, I don't think that he was malicious. I don't think he was untalented or inexperienced. I think he wasn't right for me personally.
Well, that's exactly my point, is that you have to find the thing that's right for you. And I think throughout all of this, the reason that we started where we started is because it's okay to accept where you're at and to find energies in people's and groups that match where you're at. You don't have to be brave and go spelunking and everything right away. You don't have to go face things that you're not ready to face. It's okay. It's okay to let it exist as part of yourself. And in this case, to maybe find yourself leading others, even while you're still waiting to deal with something that's hanging out there and hasn't come up to light yet.
I have a client who has 4 daughters, and each of them has needed therapy for various reasons, and their family believes very strongly in therapy. And I've known this client for 5 or 6 years at this point, and I've watched how therapy can help when it's with the correct therapist. I've also seen it ricochet backward when it wasn't the right therapist. Mm-hmm. And that's not a judgment call or evaluation of the therapist necessarily. Something about the particular process wasn't correct at that time. but they're very good at acknowledging that and finding somebody who's more appropriate for them. So it's a very good example of a family working together as a group and individually, being honest about what they need from someone who is helping them, but now they themselves work a bit like sponsors and mentors within the groups that they remain in long enough. So that relationship can be very rewarding for everybody on all sides, as long as it's the correct relationship.
So I think that's our overwhelming message, that all of this group activity needs to be the right group. So don't just jump in head first. Figure out if this is the area where you're meant to be spending your energy. And then I think this is the sign to take a foot forward and to really begin the process. I think we'll end with one of your cards. Let's kind of get our conclusion.
Let's see which deck we are going to pull from. Deck number 2 again. So this will be another profession. And it will be number 39. So to reiterate, wow. Okay. We're sticking on this right now. Number 39. Again, I profess that I see inspiration in the achievements of others. Period.
All right.
That's never happened before. Okay. Here we are. I profess that I see inspiration in the achievements of others.
That's definitely a first. Okay. So circling back again, the universe wants to make sure that we don't lose track of that one point. So there's somebody, some group, some dyad, someone, there's a other in your life that is in need of celebration, and you're the one that needs to celebrate it for them. And maybe it's a celebration that they don't see, or maybe they're not connecting with something.
And in the capacity of the authority, this becomes a moment where if you have always been the one receiving the healing, gathering so you can share, now is your time to share some of that reparation that you've been able to accumulate. Give some of that wisdom to somebody who needs it.
Okay.
Help them heal their arboglyphs.
Well, I think we'll move on from that point to our members only area, which we're still doing some free previews for. So keep listening. Normally this would be part of our membership part of the podcast, but we're going to bring you along for the journey while we're still getting started here. So I know you shared a little bit of a personal take on this, and that you've got your men's group and you're going to be going through some things this weekend. I'm curious though, did anything strike you personally when it comes to sort of that core image that we started with the nails in the wood and the trauma and healing?
So the first time I interacted with this particular group, it was as a drum circle. And it was experiential. It was not a practice. It was a one-off. And everybody's getting acquainted. I mean, I knew some of them from taking dance classes or whatever, but this was a structured drumming group. And that particular day, I was the only openly LGBT person there. And I have a very problematic relationship with authority coming from heterosexual men specifically. And I felt so safe with these people that I don't know where it came from, but I had an outright meltdown. It was scary. And the amount of love that I received, it's what still fuels my participation in the group now. And that was in 2019. So this relationship with the creator of the group and myself, we've been friends now since 2019. And some of the others have been familiar to him for a long time, but I'm only just meeting them in the last year or two. But the core group of the four of us have become very good at saying what we need to say, and nobody takes it personally because we trust each other. And this happened within the context of a group. So very specifically, growing out of today's reading, my very specific relationship to the reading is that when you find the right group, you will know. And it will feel like a huge relief that you can finally express the memories and the pain and everything, to know that you're in a safe place where people actually do care and want to see that nail get dragged out permanently and will be there to help staunch the bleeding. Be there to like paint tar over your chops so that the bugs don't get into your wood, or whatever metaphor you want. That's what they did. And me doing that day gave other people permission to be very, very vulnerable ever since. So for the last 5 years now, our group is known for being a place where if you need like a real intimate sense of protection, you can get it from us. And it's why our group is growing, because we allow a wide variety of perspectives to come in and help us understand, but we also know our material well enough that we feel confident creating these paths, as it were. We are authorities. And I just want to reiterate that whatever form of therapy you find that works for you, embrace it. And then when you meet people that you think can actually benefit from it, make sure they know about it. Evangelize it. People evangelize all sorts of stuff. Evangelize that.
Healing.
Don't keep
evangelize
it
healing.
Yeah, evangelize healing. Share it. Part of what we're trying to accomplish with this specific group is addressing and deconstructing and eliminating toxic masculinity. And so a lot of the men who come to our groups struggle specifically with what in queer theory you would call the performance of gender. We don't necessarily go into that language with this group because that's not familiar to them. We let them be who they are, but that's ultimately what's happening is we're trying to help them understand the way in which they can be male without that being oppressive to themselves or to others.
Well, that's quite a connection.
Mm-hmm. It's marvelous. Great timing.
And I think connecting it back to the root image, that all of you have your own traumas, but you're not letting that keep you from being authorities, being leaders, and taking others on the journey.
Mm-hmm. We're the sponsors in the group, as it were.
I like that. Yeah, I have my father was an alcoholic. Well, I should say he is an alcoholic. He has recovered. He does not partake, and he's been that way for almost my entire life. He had these challenges before I was even born, but you know the lessons and things are still out there, and so I keep coming back to it as an idea from time to time because I'm familiar with it. There's other people in my life that have been part of groups and needed that kind of support network, and I think if you could erase the Seventh-day Adventist taint on 12 steps, there would be a lot more areas that it could be useful for and a lot more people it could be useful for. I think the necessity of having the higher power be inside of it is just not helpful to a larger group of people. And I think it leads toward evangelicalism working its way into what should be a healing space. And I have a very big problem with evangelicalism. I was raised in it, so I speak with a little bit of authority. There's just too much guilt-based thinking, too much shame-based thinking. I think it really locks up your second and third chakras to the point where I'd be surprised that you don't have stomach aches all the time. Like, how could you not? A lot of people do. You're that locked up. And yeah. So I think my personal take on it is actually this podcast, the deck, the book. I'm new to tarot. Like I didn't grow up with tarot. I grew up in the church. So I'm not, I don't come from a Wiccan family or anyone that was particularly spiritual or spiritualist. In fact, I mean, most of my family would probably still call tarot of the devil. It's not a welcome type of divination in a lot of the circles. I don't really have contact with much of my family. In fact, I really only have contact with my sister and my dad at this point. The rest of my family is kind of gone away over the years. But what I come back to with this is that sense of imposter when it comes to being the authority. I very much feel that, where I have something to say. I have something to say with this deck. I have something to say with the book. I've studied. I have intuition. I have insights and feelings. I've always had them. I didn't know what to call them when we were in the church. We called them one thing. Now that I'm not really embedded in that any longer, it was hard to find a new home for it. Like, what is this thing that I've always had in my life? And that's kind of where I draw this from is, doing this podcast, I'm leading people down a path, and I'm not completely healed or completely, a guru or a master of anything at this point. At least it doesn't feel that way. But here we are.
Now you're having a dialogue, and it takes courage to start that conversation. And that in and of itself is part of the process of clearing the path.
So it's very much to me a reminder to celebrate in what you guys come up with out there, that we create these decks, these books, we have these intellectual ideas. In Jack's case, years and years of labor to create the haiku and create the system that everything is based on. And I think what really makes that worthwhile is the ways that others use it. And I think that's probably why that card came up twice for us. And I think it was for you and me. Like, I think it was specifically for the two of us to remind us that what we are looking for alongside money's good. We would like money.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. But what we're looking for is to celebrate what others do with our work. And I think as artists, that's the one thing that you and I have not yet seen and are still looking forward to.
Yeah, you make this specifically for it to be shared. And in this instance, we're talking about healing and doing it without being solitary sometimes, finding partners to heal with. I think this particular reading wanted to encourage us to embrace the fact that we are healers.
We are here.
It's what we do. We are
that.
light workers.
I like that. Actually, my very favorite tarot deck is the Light Seers Tarot, just for that fact that the author of it, who does communicate with me on Instagram. So I think once the show gets going a little bit, I'll propose a guest spot.
I love that.
I think that'd be kind of awesome to have
Check
someone
out
else.
the deck so I'm familiar and can participate in an intellectual way.
I think it'll be interesting, like, because with the show, we each bring our own decks. She has, I think, 4 decks that she's made. So I'd be curious what she would bring to an episode, which decks she would feel inspired to share.
What's really crazy about this is the way in which the decks can have conversations with each other. What would it be like to have somebody come on and not really decide anything, to just greet with a card, the next person replies with a card, and we just have a card reading as a conversation just to see what the decks have to say to each other?
I mean, we've got many episodes to try many different things. So
that would be fun.
That would
just
be
a
fun.
Conversation of cards.
Conversation of cards. That sounds like another podcast.
I love it.
All right. So, Jack, where do we find you?
Oh, so find me at Instagram at 49 Haiku.
And you can find me at deansagemedia.com. I'm Dean Sage Media on some of the things that I go on. I still go on X. I went on X today for a minute.
Oh, honey, why? Why did you do that?
Well,
are you okay? Do you need some healing?
I have to kind of pop over there every once in a while just to see what's happening. It's where
let me put a plug in here right quick for Tribal.
Tribal, okay.
Tribal, TRIBEL. It is looking to create a social network that removes the toxicity and allows you to choose the topics you want to be exposed to so that people can't just flood you with their bot nonsense.
All right, well, maybe you'll find me there, but I am pretty active on the Instagram. And also you guys can find both of us at showyourdeck.com, showyourdeck.com. That leads you right to the page where all of our decks and books are available for purchase. We really appreciate anything that you guys are willing to give to us. So thank you so much for all that.
Thank you.